Spate, your Director of Training and Livestock Management at Royal Carriages, and we're standing here today in front of our training buggy, or as some folks like to affectionately call the Mad Max buggy. Uh, it does have an interesting look and more of that Mad Max style than the rest of our carriages here that have the standard spoke wheels on them with the rubbers on the outside. They look a lot more traditional than obviously rubber car tires. But there's reasons why we have that, and we're going to go through a couple things, the reasons why we do things, and the different things that we have on our training buggy that allow us to be safe and do the things that we need to do to make sure that the mules are safe and handled properly and able to experience the world that we work in the easiest manner possible. So really quick, this is our training buggy. I'm going to go through a couple parts with you here. The first thing is this. This is our team pole. The team pole here, we have ours tied up. I'm going to drop it here real quick just so you can see. Now this team pole is what allows the animals to turn the vehicle. So our normal single mule or single horse shafts are just shafts on either side of one animal, and that's how they turn the vehicle. But when you have a set of animals, instead of having shafts on either side of them, you have one pole in the middle of them, and then you have the ability to hook it to their collars to hold that pole up. And so when they step over, they can turn it either right or left, depending. We also have things set up on this to allow them to stop this carriage, although we do also have brakes. So the mule's head would be here, obviously. This hooks on to the yoke on the bottom of their collar, and our regular collars don't have this yoke. It literally is another piece that we add, and that yoke comes down, hooks in under the collar right in front of the chest, or the brisket, as some folks might call it, but right in front of the front of the chest, and that's where they hold that pole up, and it gives them the ability to move it. Now, as you go back here down this pole, we have single trees. This is a single tree here and here. The single tree is what the animals tugs or chains or traces, however your gear is set up. In our case, we call them tugs. It is a biothane strap, which is basically a plastic covered synthetic, which is strong. It doesn't break down as easy as leather does, and it has a chain on it. So right here is where you would hook each animal in. So you'd have one animal with their bottom here and one animal with their bottom there. And again, this is the single tree here, and this puts into our swing tree here in the center, or a double tree. And then all of this attaches back to the front axle of the buggy so that buggy, again, can turn and can pull. So they pull from here and they turn from here. So when they go to, and they actually push, but if you think about it, if they have their chains here, they're going to push against this and they're going to move that buggy. So that's how that works. Now, some other things about our buggy here. First of all, this is actually one of our Royal Carriages buggies. It's actually a Surrey. So if you look to here, you see this AC04. That is the same exact frame as this training buggy. But we realize when training, it is a lot safer to have an open vehicle with not as many seats, to have rubber tires, and to have a little bit of a stronger roll cage just in case, and of course this has never happened to me, but just in case we were to possibly flip. We don't talk about this a whole lot, but driving carriages can be dangerous just like driving cars, and we always have to practice excellent safety precautions when we're doing different things. So with that, the rubber tires are a little wider. There's some things that the rubber tires can be a little bit of a pain on. If you go over fresh gravel with a young mule, it makes a lot of noise, and the tire kind of amplifies that noise. So the tires can scare them just based on noise sometimes. Other than that, tires bounce off of things a lot better than hard wooden spoke wheels. These wooden spoke wheels that we use on our regular carriages, a lot of people don't realize this, but they're very tough. They're very hard, and they have a rubber outside to help with shock absorption, but they are a hard wheel. So it's one of those where having rubber, it definitely having pneumatic tires is going to make it easier, a little bit easier to pull, and it's going to be a little bit softer ride with the tires. But again, people here in New Orleans, they're wanting to see a more traditional style, so this obviously is not what we use on our day-to-day. Now, excuse me. Now, if you notice, we have our standard front seat, just like we would. It's not quite as high as some of the other ones, and there's a reason behind that. And then behind this front seat, we have a jump seat. So if you notice here, it's the perfect size for me to reach up and grab this roll bar, grab this seat here, and jump on. When we are training, there are times I always have someone behind me. My barn manager is also my right-hand man, and he sits behind me at all times when I'm working a mule that is not finished. So any mule that we're not sure about, I will always have somebody here, and then I will be here, and that way if something were to happen, I have somebody right behind me to reach over me and help me with the lines, or jump out and grab something. And so again, just like we have it set up where it's easy to get in as far as pulling yourself on, it's also a little closer to the ground, so it's easier to jump on and off of. If you notice, we don't have a whole lot of steps, but again, the weight, this is a training buggy. We get accustomed to how we work on this. We do a lot of practice up and off of this. And so again, you see me, I'm a big guy, but I jump right in here and I can get in here quick. We got what some folks call oh crap bar right here. Again, if you were to get into a sticky situation, this gives you the ability to widen out and make sure that you're keeping your weight even in here, because we would hate to possibly flip a buggy because of an incident that wasn't necessarily needing to happen. Things can get out of control quick when you're working with animals. That's why we always are very careful. And again, it's the reason why we're constantly practicing, training, and working in this buggy so that we know where we are and how, like, our space. Because spatial awareness in this job is very, very important. On the back, we have a strobe light and regular street lights, along with reflectors. So we have reflectors, we have regular lights, running lights that face forward, and red lights that face backwards. We have the light bar here, and then we have a sign that says caution, mule in training, and I'll actually slide that forward there so you can see. So caution, mule in training, stay back 100 feet, and we train every single mule that comes into Royal Carriages barn spends some time on this training buggy. Now, I'm going to push the training buggy back where it was so I can show you one more thing here. As you see right here, we got a hydraulic brake. That hydraulic brake only works the back wheels, and it helps us to control the buggy. Now, a lot of people ask questions about that brake. It's not like a car brake, because in a car, when you brake, generally, most people nowadays drive an automatic, and when you brake, the engine actually is braking as well. So your motor, as soon as you take your foot off that accelerator, you're slowing down and then you're hitting that brake as well. In this, we don't have an automatic accelerator. We have an animal in front of us. So the way most of us have been taught is our brake is to control the carriage or the buggy. So that means, for instance, if I'm going down a steep hill, I use that brake to keep from putting too much pressure on the back of the animal. Because if I don't use a brake, it's just pushing on them. We have them set up the way an animal pulls. They have a pulling collar with us. They have a pulling collar, and then they have a britchin that goes on their back end that allows them to sit down and stop their vehicle. And so the brake, not only does it help control that carriage when we're going down steep hills, like coming off of the yard here, when you go into the street, there's a little bit of a drop. But also, especially new mules, sometimes they get anxious, or really you teach them how to go for a while, and they see what they're supposed to be doing, and they think they're just supposed to be walking all the time. So when they hit a stoplight, they go, well, why are we not continuing to go? So sometimes they'll get a little antsy and they'll want to move the buggy back and forth. And a good way to teach them early on that that's not a good habit is put a little bit of pressure on that brake, and allows them to understand, okay, I'm not going to be allowed to roll this back and forward. The other is the majority of our mules come from Amish country. Most mules in Amish country are never ever taken on the road. Most mules in Amish country are not hooked to buggies. So that means they're pulling plows and hay rakes and hay cutters and potato pickers and all sorts of different farm implements. Well, if you've ever been on a farm, you know, but if you haven't, these implements are all generally ground driven or have weight. They don't roll around very easily. So, you think about a plow. When you pull a plow is a static thing. When you stop, it stops. A hay rake is a static thing. When you stop, generally, it stops. It's not going to roll backwards on you. So, because these animals don't generally drive carriages before they come to us, they just drive other implements, like farm implements, they have never had a vehicle that might roll back on them. So like they're sitting there at the stop sign, and then all of a sudden they feel that vehicle start rolling back, and it's like, wait a second, am I supposed to be backing up with this? And so using that brake also teaches them early on, it's like, I know you're not used to something rolling around on you. It's not supposed to be. If you stand in place, once it's sitting still, there's no reason to move it. So that's the reason why we use the brake. You never, ever, ever want to hold on a brake and not be putting pressure on the animal. Most of these mules and most driving horses in general, if you put more pressure on them, they're just going to pull harder. You have to use your hands and pull back on the bridle a little bit, slow them down physically, as well as using this to slow the buggy down. So that's one of the big mistakes that we have to worry about with rookies, is when we're teaching you how to use the brake, you don't ever want to hold on to it too hard, because if your animal were to start backing up really hard and they got really upset and you had the brake on, they might slip and fall, and you can't do that. Same thing pulling forward. If you were to hold on that brake, at some point they may slip, and we never, ever, ever want to put our animal in a position to slip. So it's a very careful use item, something that we think very hard when we go to use, and a brake should not be your first thing that you reach for on your vehicle, because again, it's used to control the vehicle itself and not the animal. We are controlling, you are the driver of the animal. The last thing here is when you're driving two mules or horses, you have this team pole, and a lot of people set this up in various ways, but the way we do it, generally, in the United States, we drive on the right-hand side of the road, so I'm going to have traffic meeting me. If I'm in the buggy, I'm going to have traffic meeting me this way. Well, if I have traffic meeting me, and it possibly could startle the animal in this spot, then I would much rather have the animal that's in that spot to be the confidant of my two animals. So, the term we use is usually lead. So, they'll call either lead or offside. And again, this is generally, there are a lot of different terms. I'm just using the terms that we commonly use here. So this would be what I would call my lead. I would have it on the car side as we're driving in traffic. And then my offside mule, the mule that I'm training, would be on the other side, on the sidewalk or curb side. And again, some people would call that offside. When you are driving multiple animals in a line, if you have two together, but then you have two in front of them, if you've ever seen the Budweiser coach, you have your wheelers in the back are the ones that are connected right in front of the wheels. And then you have your headers that are all the way up front. And then, of course, you have your animals that are in between. And if you're in a 4-hitch, obviously, you just have headers and wheelers. When you're in a 6-hitch, you got headers, and then you got middle ups, and then you have your back wheelers. I will say this. I'm sitting here telling you that I put my lead animal on this side. There are some trainers that do not do that. Some trainers, they switch them back and forth. In fact, I've had guys and gals that told me one day they drive an animal on this side, the other day they drive them on the other side. And the reason for that is just the same thing with you. If you practice things with both hands, you're going to get better with both hands. If you practice things one way and then practice them in another, you're going to get better. We are generally right or left-handed. Animals are the same way. Some horses and mules or equines overall are right-handed or right-footed. Some are left-handed or left-footed. They literally are more likely to go that way first, to be more comfortable to go that way than they are the other. So this promotes two things. It promotes them being more ambidextrous, so to speak, being more versatile. Excuse me. It also it teaches them to understand that they're going to see traffic and things like that. So again, I don't necessarily do that. Generally, the way we do, we put our lead mule on this side, we put our off mule that we're training on the other side, and that's the way we do it. But there's going to be people that ask, and so yes, it is okay for you to put your lead mule wherever you'd like to. Maybe in your situation you want the lead mule on the right because you drive from the right and you like to have that control there. But most folks that I have been taught, most of them drive from the curb side, which is the right side. Your lead mule is going to be more confident, so he can be a little further away from you. You want that mule that you're dealing with and trying to train as close to you as possible, because when you're riding an animal, you're right there in their ear. You're right there talking to them. You can be so close. You're connected by touching them. But when you're in a carriage or you're in a wagon, that's not the case. You are separated from them. So the safe place that they have with you has a separation in it. And in any of you with kids or pets know that if you've ever seen your animal or your child anxious because they're a little further from you than they wanted to, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So in this case, it makes perfect sense to me to have my confident animal a little further away from me, because it's kind of like big brother or big sister. They're over there. They kind of have an idea of the world, and have my younger animal or my newer animal in this case, because they're not always younger, but my newer animal in this case on the other side, so that they're not getting quite as much stimulus. They don't have cars coming by them and things like that. The truth is, in the French Quarter in New Orleans, most of our streets are one way. So generally, they're not going to meet a vehicle. But when we get out on different avenues, Esplanade is separated, but Decatur is not. Rampart is separated. We don't normally get on big streets like that, but there are times that we do have two-way traffic, and it is safer when you have two-way traffic, in my opinion, to have your lead animal on the traffic side. So that's how we do that. Other than that, I'm trying to think if there's anything I've left out here. You know, the springs that we use in our vehicles, much like the old car springs of old, you see a lot more complicated things now, but this is just a straight axle. In most carriages, you're going to have a sideways leaf spring in front like this, which is counterintuitive because most vehicles are not like that. They're down the rails. And then in the back, you can see we have leaf springs on either side, just like a car would. So other than that, I think that's about it. We have a large mirror. I use a golf cart mirror, and it gives me the ability to really see a wide spectrum. Because again, you have to be so careful when you're out there. You don't want to startle your animal. You don't want to possibly get into an accident. So the more views that we can get, the better. And checking more times and being as safe as we can is how we do things. Because unfortunately, people are people. Accidents do happen, and we want to do our best to be defensive drivers so that we can mitigate those things. And having things like safety measures, like having mirrors, which some people might not see as a safety measure, but it is. Having mirrors, having brakes, having a roll cage, having rubber tires, all these things, having blinking lights, having brake lights and running lights and reflectors, all these things are making it safer for the animal, which is the most important things, and of course also us. So that is a little rundown of the Mad Max carriage. As you can tell, one last little thing here, it has a great dashboard. So if you ever need to put your feet on the floor and really pray to the Lord, you can definitely do it. We don't really get in those situations much. We do a lot of work with these animals before we just send them out. And with that, I tell people your voice is a beacon in the storm. So we do a lot of work where we get connected, we get our animal comfortable with us, do a lot of repetition, and get them out there and get them comfortable and safe with what we're doing. Because really, if an animal can make it here, it's work. There's no doubt that it's work. But they are going to be taken care of better than really any other facility I've ever been at. It's very impressive how we do things here. Things are clean, things are kept up, animals have great care, great feed, great hay, never any worries for anything, and then also have 100 acres worth of pasture to go out to at Royal Haven Farm when they're on break. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about our training buggy today, our Mad Max carriage, and I hope y'all will tune in soon for some more information. Thank you so much.